Hey guys, Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. I'm at the farm for the Great Farm Cleanup Part 3. If you saw my last video about the farm cleanup, we did a lot of eBay sales for machinery. It went quite well. And I'm back here today. It's a terrible day for well into summer, and it's cold and it's very windy and we've had a few showers. So Dad and I are just down the paddock, down the front there, getting machinery ready for pickup. We've got a heap of guys coming today. A lot of them need their equipment loaded onto trailers and trucks, so we've teed up Ross, the neighbour who's bought the property here, to come over with his tractor and his front end loader or his forks and lift things on. So we're just getting everything ready. We're swapping hydraulic rams and getting things into transport position, and Dad, in his infinite kindness, has been washing equipment after it's sold. So whoever buys stuff from Dad usually says much better than expected in our feedback. So that's kind of nice, I guess. So I'm just looking for a bit of pipe. We need to move the wheels on the slasher to transport position. We got some pretty good prices, and if you didn't see the last episode, I'll put a link underneath. It's very windy here today as well, so hopefully we don't get too much wind noise, but I have got my little dead animal here on my microphone, so hopefully that cuts out the wind noise. It'd be a good test for it. So in between showers, we're out here just adjusting things. We've just had to swivel these transport wheels around on the slasher, and I think we have to adjust that big pivoting wheel so that we can get it within 8 feet, because the guy that's bought it wants to put it on a large trailer, I think. And the baler up the end, we've also just measured. The other baler's back in the farmyard now. So yeah, it's just a matter of getting it all organised. But a lot of this stuff is going to be picked up in the next couple of days, which is pretty good. The big cultivator bar here was actually purchased by Ross, so it's actually staying on the property. And he also purchased something else, the harrow bar up there behind the tractor. Okay, we've got to pull this slasher forward now to get into transport position. And that front jockey wheel has to fold round too, so I think it measures 8 foot in width once everything folds up. So time to load up some of the stuff, and Ross is here with his front end loader helping load this little 3-point linkage cultivator onto the back of this guy's ute. These guys also bought both the balers, so they're actually going to swap a few tyres around and tow the balers back. I think they drove nearly an hour to get here, so that's nice. More stuff going. And now I'm out down the machinery graveyard. It's pretty windy out here, so hopefully you can hear me. I'm just photographing some of these old gates to put on my next lot of eBay listings. This is a 12-footer, I think. It's a HV McKay Sunshine Gate. You can see, hopefully, the embossing there on the centre. They were made in Melbourne, in Sunshine, and they're rather iconic as early Australian farm gates. It actually says McKay on the latch there as well. So this one's pretty rough. The bottom rail's rusted out. It's obviously broken this end, but people still fix them up, and I've got 3 of them to list, so it'll be interesting to see how they go. In good order, they can bring quite a lot of money. I would expect this one might still make $100. I'm going to start this one at $50, and I've got a couple of longer ones, one of them in very good condition, so they'll be in the next batch of eBay listings. I'm also going to try my luck with this large windmill fan. It's pretty large. I reckon it's nearly 8, maybe 10 feet wide. It's obviously a bit beaten up, and some of the blades are quite rusty and bent, but fantastic piece of garden art. So I'm not going to move it there. I'm just going to drag the twigs and the wire and a few things away from it, and I'll take some photos where it is. And I think we'll start that at a couple of $100 and see how we go. There's a chance we might do all right with that. And I think we'll also give this old bulk grain bin a go, sitting on an old Chevy truck chassis, and this little small bulk grain trailer, which was locally made in Horsham, I believe. Now, if you didn't see my first farm walk around video, there's something I'm going to salvage off this before we sell it. On the back of it is an original enamelled Victorian number plate, so I'm taking that off. That's going into my number plate collection at home. It's probably worth more than the trailer. The trailer's still in good order, but we'll see how that goes. I think we'll also try this bagging platform. It's a bit rusty, but it might have some use for somebody. I don't think we'll worry about that old bin. That can probably go for scrap metal. It's rusted out at the bottom. Maybe the bulk top off the truck here we'll try, and probably the old crane here that Dad made, which we will be listing as either garden art or scrap metal, because it's not, there's no engineer's certificate. The Department of Safety would freak if they saw someone using this, but it is actually in working order, so we'll probably put that on as well and see how we go there. So yeah, we're getting through the stuff. So we've had more machinery picked up from out the front. Still waiting on a couple of guys, but most of the stuff's gone, which is great. It's terribly windy out here, and if you're hearing me, that means these little microphones are doing a very good job. So I've backed up to the barn. I'm going to start loading the van with some stuff to take back home. I've got enough pictures of stuff to put on eBay, I can now switch into let's load up the van with treasures mode. I've picked up an old auger from down the back graveyard. I think I can sell that. They make really nice quirky letterbox stands. I've also grabbed a couple of gates and some more little diamond harrows, trailing harrows. They sell very well just as garden art. Dad's just coming back in with the tractor. He's been moving some stuff around. So, time to tackle the barn. We need to empty stuff out of here. Now this used to be a seed wheat barn because we were mainly cropping farmers here, so the barn was used for grain storage, and we probably didn't notice, you may not have noticed underneath, but it's actually mounted up on old earthenware pipes. The idea is to keep the mice and the rats out of it, which kind of worked well unless something's leaning up against the barn. And of course now these days we have steps here. Could never have those in the old times, otherwise the mice just climb up the steps. So we need to empty a lot of this. There's a bit of wool in here that Dad has to get rid of at some stage. There's some large tables that we'll probably just put on a Facebook group. There's a very old table tennis table there made out of chipboard. It's only good probably for firewood, unfortunately. I can't take any of that back to reuse it. This item is an old, what they call a Coolgardie safe. Now it's basically for cool food storage. Back before you had refrigerators, there is a large galvanised pressed tin tray that goes in the top, which you fill with water. Originally it had hessian material down the sides, which dipped into the water, so the hessian was damp, and the breeze flowing through the damp hessian created a cooling effect, and it was the best way to keep your meat and produce cool in the old days, well before electricity and refrigerators. It also has a tray that the thing sits in, so that any moisture that kind of flows right down to the bottom is gathered in the tray. We still have those trays, so I'll be taking that back to the shop. It does need a little bit of a clean up and a fix up, but I think that's probably quite saleable. Not sure what it's worth, maybe $100 when it's cleaned up and has the trays in it. We have here an early, well, probably a mid-1960s Laminex table. This was our kitchen table in our farmhouse kitchen when I was a kid. It's worth cleaning up. The top needs re-gluing down. I believe it used to have square corners, and I think I, as a toddler, hit my head on the corner, and I can't remember what actually happened, but it prompted Dad to actually cut the corners into, basically round the corners of the table. He did a nice neat job of that. The legs are a bit rusty, but we'll probably paint them up. I think that's still quite a saleable retro 60s kitchen table. Cleaned up with the Laminex glued down and maybe a little bit of paint on the legs. I think we could expect to get $150 for that. We'll have to make some room in the shop though. This is a little spray tank. It belongs to an uncle of mine. He'll have to pick that up. Those drawers are out of a cupboard that wasn't of any value, and I think it's fallen apart. I will salvage the Art Deco handles off them. They will be nickel plated brass, but they will sell as Art Deco handles in the shop. The rest of it's probably firewood. That little chest of drawers there is only plywood, and it's probably only firewood. I think Mum is actually going to break it up and use it to start the kitchen fire. There's another retro table under there. It's a bit rusty, but I think it has a really nice sort of marbled red Laminex, so that might be worth cleaning up. I don't think I'll grab that this time. There's, what have we got here? A little laundry trolley for, you know, hanging out your laundry. You put the basket in the top. That will sell. That will get about $20. This cupboard here, my mum actually made in the 1960s, back when chipboard was the new butte building material. And I guess back then people liked it, now people despise it. The rest of it, she did a good job. It would have had glass sliding windows across the front there, and the back piece has fallen off it, so it might have to just be cut up for kindling, unfortunately. These old bed frames, they used beautiful Oregon timber. I think you call it Douglas fir in the States. Lovely grain. It's worth salvaging the timber off that. The actual spring base will probably just go in the scrap metal pile. We have various windows here. I think I'm going to try and put these old windows on a local Facebook group. Maybe even to give away, or maybe just for, oh, there's quite a lot of them. There's about 4 of them. We might try $50 a lot, plus the screen. These are all spring bed bases. You can go down to the scrap metal pile. They're not worth selling. Now these seat ends, well actually these come from the local hall. They date to the early 1920s, and these are the centre parts of old theatre seats or cinema seats. We have some other bits around. Let's have a scan. Here's some of the ends. They're beautifully decorative, cast iron. Quite still Art Nouveau, even though I think it was into the 1920s, because I believe our hall burnt down, I think it was around 1920, and these would have been put in the new hall. But they do kind of look a little Edwardian to me, so they look a bit older than 1920s. However, we have lots of them. Now I'm going to take these ends back to the shop because they will sell. They will sell for probably $50 each, $100 the pair. There's left and right ends with the armrests on them. So I'm taking those back to the shop. But the middle sections and the seats, these are the old seats. They've got springs in them and padding and timber underneath and cast iron fittings. They were the swivel up, like you stand up and the seats flick up. They came in gangs of, well, I think as many as you wanted to put together. Let's go and have a look over here. There's some actually made up. So here's some gangs still made up underneath these bags. So you can see what I mean there. There's some that are made up. I think these seats probably still swivel down. There we go. So they're pretty cool, and we have sold gangs of them before, but I don't have time to make them up, and it is quite a drama to make them up because you have to bolt them to a rail, and there needs to be a rod through the back of them to tie the backrests together. So we also have a seat of the backrests. There's more seats, and there's the set of backrests under here. Really nice timber. So rather than waste time trying to make them up and sell them, and we have, I've actually sold gangs of them for around $300, but they're heavy, they're hard to get back to the shop. They take up a lot of room in the shop. I'm going to put these 2 gangs here, plus all the other spares on eBay, and probably just ask a couple of $100, and someone can come and take them all and maybe make them up as a hobby. We have pulled a few aside because an auntie does want some, so I think Dad's going to make up a little double seat set up there, so we've got enough parts to do that. And the rest of them I'm going to eBay. So what does that leave us? Now the cement shed in the middle, Dad's been doing some repairs to the house, so that sort of will be used. There's some boxes, a milk crate I'll use. Really there's a little bit of stuff to go on a bonfire pile, just some old cardboard boxes. I found some wire to take back that's no good, and this spool is actually nice copper, number 2 copper wire. So I'll throw that in the van. But there's not much else to go to clean up in here. There is an old bag trolley here, or a hand truck, it depends what you call it. Nice steel wheels on that one. And there's another one over the other side. We'll just go and have a look at that. And there's a few other, looks like some cast iron window weights in there, a shovel, a pick. Stuff that I can sell at the shop. There's nothing from that, all that's going to go on eBay. There's a trolley over here, which if we can make it out in the dim light, it says Maker, HV McKay, and then there's a strap welded over it, and I think that says Melbourne. So that's a nice early HV McKay trolley. It's actually the same company that made those gates that we looked at earlier, so I'll take that trolley home, clean it up, and I think it should pull $150 thereabouts when it's cleaned up. So other than some big tables in the middle here that I'll just put on Facebook, there's a work light here that I can sell. Dad said he didn't want that. There's an old washing machine that can just go in the scrap pile. I might pull the electric motor out of it. an aluminium window I think I'll put on Facebook, just local groups for free. That will go a long way to cleaning up the whole barn, which is good. I'm trying to get Mum and Dad to concentrate on one area at a time. I don't really want to kind of just cherry pick. I'd like to be able to, maybe after next trip, I would like to be able to look in the barn and say, that's finished, it's neat and clean, and if Ross needs to use it, then he can. Okay, update on the chairs, guys. I've just been talking to Dad. He tells me that the fire in the hall was in the 1920s, late 1920s, but it didn't burn the hall down, even though they rebuilt the hall. Apparently it only damaged one side. Started from a fish and chip shop next door, I believe. So these chairs would have been salvaged from the original hall, and that solves a puzzle for me, because I could never understand why these beautiful old cast iron seats that kind of look late Victorian were apparently 1920s. Well, that's incorrect. They would have been original, and I just looked up a local history book, and the hall was built around about 1889, I think. So these ends are much earlier than the 1920s, and I've decided, how good does that look? I've decided to take some of the seats and backrests and some of the middle sections, and I'm actually going to make up double seats, simply because I reckon that they'll go really well in the shop. They look great. We might even save a set for our back deck. I think I could probably ask $300 or so for a pair of those. It won't take too much to bolt them together. I'll actually probably mount them on the nice old hardwood floorboards I've got. So that's going to be some projects for me in the future. Yes, I know I've got to save them and find somewhere to put them until I have time, and it's not that I need another project at home, but you know. Okay, I need to speak to my therapist. But anyway, I'm going to pick out some of the better seats, some of the better backrests, and certainly all the nice good ends, and maybe some of these middle sections, so I can make up just little gangs of two to either some for home and maybe some to sell through the shop. It's the final morning of the farm trip for this adventure. We've got quite a bit of stuff organised. Most of the machinery's gone. The large auger's been picked up tomorrow, the last few items over the weekend. I think I've filled the van with plenty of stuff to keep me busy when I get home. Just stuff out of the sheds, just stuff to help declutter. I even grabbed a few batteries. There's a large pile of batteries around the place, so they will go to the scrapyard in Melbourne when we do a run next. Even some pieces of quartz out of the garden, because I'll be able to sell them through the shop. A piece of marble, some old lawn bowls sets that Dad no longer uses, and just all sorts of bits and pieces that they've kept in sheds, and some of them are just empty jars that I'll use. There's some old eskies there which will sell nice in the shop, an old suitcase. So yeah, just lots of random bits and pieces that I'll have to process out of the van when I get home, because I don't have any room to store it, and I don't want to store it. I want to keep on top of these jobs that are coming in. So that's pretty good. I'm just about to head off soon, about a 3.5 hour trip home. I feel like I've had a pretty productive 3 days. There's also this word processor thing that I've got to try and sell. And I got my 2 number plates. Well, look at that. They're consecutive numbers. So pretty cool. Not that I'm really a number plate collector, but you know, they're part of my heritage. I'll hang them up in the shed somewhere. And yeah, so there we go. I don't have a huge load to take back, but it was a worthwhile 3 days. I'll be getting a heap of stuff on eBay soon, which will be part 4 of the Great Farm Cleanup. And we'll run through the auctions like we did last time. Let me know if you enjoyed that. And then eventually we're going to get into these sheds. There's no real pressure to do it at this stage, but this is Dad's workshop, which he's got pretty organised lately. But who knows what we're going to find in here. So down the track we'll be emptying the sheds, but at this stage Mum and Dad are still staying here as long as they can, and Dad still likes to tinker. That caravan will probably go on eBay at some stage. Big heavy thing it is, but I think vintage caravans have a bit of a following these days, so that'll be a future eBay item. So thanks for watching, guys. Another video done and dusted. I'm going in for some quick lunch, fill my thermos, have a coffee, and hit the road. And I'll be back home later this afternoon. Next video, who knows, but we'll be doing an eBay video on the next lot of farm stuff. So please let me know if you enjoy those. I'll try and not have too much eBay content, but I do like to watch the auctions finish, so I hope you guys do as well. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.